Captain on the bridge.
Alright, captains, we are back on the bridge, and today, yes, we will be going over Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 10, Favorite Moments. Captains, before we get into this video, do us a huge favor, hit that like button. Also, if you're new here to the bridge, welcome. Consider subscribing here to the YouTube bridge, as we're always on the lookout for like-minded captains where we can share our love, our passion for things Star Trek. Now, with that said, here we go. Captains, I know I'm a little late on this video, especially of how we've been releasing it after the episodes when they've aired. And the reason being, I'll be 100% honest. Even up to this point of making this video, I am still processing what I just saw in the whole entirety of Star Trek Picard Season 3. I am having somewhat sort of a problem in accepting that it's done, in a sense, but it's almost in a good way. But what we're gonna do in this video, as what we've done in the previous videos in this series, is go over some of our favorite moments. There's a lot of them in this one, captains. Of course, drop our two ECs, our thoughts, and then at the end, give our conclusion. So it's been a very huge experience for me. That's all I can really think of. And I've been saying that ever since almost, I think, our first review of Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 1. It's been an experience. And Episode 10 was no different. From beginning to end, I was on the edge of my seat. I was shaking. I found myself really engaged from beginning to end, laughing, crying, just everything, all of a mixed bag of emotion that Triz can be. And it's a good thing, because this is something I grew up with. This is something that I hold dear in my heart, and it has influenced my life. Not only Star Trek, but Star Trek The Next Generation really influenced my life in the way that I even sort of think and see things in the real world. And having had this sort of last hurrah has been just an awesome. And I'm almost viewing it as a gift to not only myself, of course, to us as fans of Star Trek The Next Generation. And one of the things that I was worried about in this episode being sort of just an hour long was, how are they going to wrap up everything? And I will say that they wrapped it up pretty darn good. Could it have been done better? Probably. But how much better? Who knows? But we are going to start with two moments here of sort of honorable mentions. And the first is going to be the cook. I said right there in my intro, I was laughing. And the cook made me laugh. I totally enjoyed the moments he was on screen, and when Seven mustered up this crew to try and, one, take back the Titan, but of course, try to stall the fleet. And for a pilot, they found the cook who didn't even finish his schooling because of his mom was sick. And I couldn't help but laugh. And this is what this was, I was sort of saying earlier, where this was an experience. I would find moments of laughter, and this was one of them. And having him just give us this moment was awesome. And not only this moment, he also gave us the moment where, you know, us against this fleet moment, where he just didn't know, like, the sort of feeling of hopelessness, you know, and he was able to just convey that. And again, his position of just being someone he pulled from the kitchen, right? Now he's the helm of the last ship, what is left of the Federation, as Seven would say. So I had to give him a shout out. The cook was just awesome at this part. So there's that. The next kind of shout out here, you saw it there in the intro, captains. We are definitely loving this intro that they used the galaxy in. I was really hoping that they would when they showed the galaxy in episode 9. And not only did they do that, they also gave it a Borg sort of theme here. And this whole introduction was just nostalgia, it got me right into the mood. Seeing the gal just do her little loop there with the Borg cube there in the background, seeing her in flight. And a lot of you captains know that the galaxy is my first love. The galaxy is the ship that made me fall in love with Star Trek. And giving her this moment, not only in episode 9 but 10, but also this intro is going to be with us for a while, because seeing it was awesome. But not only this intro, they also added this little nugget there. That meant a lot to me. I know it's just that scene but that is what I looked forward to weekly when I was a kid, and they just did it correctly. I feel that it was a lot of nostalgia nuggets, definitely, but if they're gonna go out in a way that this is it, why not, right? Just throw everything at us. And I think they did it in a very tasteful way, in my opinion. And it could have been over the top, which I'm fine with, because this, I think what really matters is how I perceive it, in the end of how we all perceive it, right? And I perceive this as just, here, this is for you guys, thank you. And that's kind of how I can really, and I told you, it's been days, a week after this episode is aired, and I'm still processing it because of all of the emotions that it has stirred in me. And as a Star Trek fan, and as Star Trek fans, we are very passionate about our Star Trek, hence why there is a lot of discussion, I will say, colorful discussion when it comes to the quote-unquote new Trek and how they have treated it. But for me, again, all I could feel is just appreciative of this moment. So I had to give those 2 shout-outs to those 2, but now we're gonna get into our other main favorite things here that we saw here in Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 10, and we're gonna continue on with the Federation / Borg fleet here. This was absolutely insane. Having this huge Federation, and to me, this is how I took it. This is the Federation fleet at its height. Right now, this is all the ships in the Federation. There may be some outliers here and there, of course. Some ships out patrolling still yet, but I feel that this is it. Like, look how many ships we saw there. This whole Fed fleet was absolutely insane. Like, just again, I said this before in the review, this formation that they took, I don't get it, but sure. I hope we get some sort of explanation on why they chose these circles and the ships within the circle, and then there's a line of ships up and below, above and below. Sure, and going across, but the amount of pew-pews was aplenty, and I appreciated it. And it gave us a sense that their weaponry hasn't really changed much. You still got your phasers, you still got your photons, just like what we've seen throughout the season from the Titan. I did see some white torpedoes fire here, so when I say white torpedoes, I was hoping that they're representing the quantum torpedoes, but the quantum torpedoes are distinctive blue, and it was kind of lacking, but it was there. I know it was there, so I'm just going to say yes. But when I look at this fleet, and a lot of you guys know that we are from Star Trek Online, that is the main content that we cover here. The one thing that they did was really, really make canon the Odyssey. They're just in this picture alone. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Odysseys. Now, I know there has been a point of discussion on the Enterprise that being decommissioned, and I am slightly disappointed. But having said that, the Odyssey class is a canon ship now. It has been canonized, and by a lot. So as much as it sucked that we're not going to see anything more from the Enterprise F, I think in general I'm happy with the Enterprise F having had its moment, and also the Odyssey class just being solidified as a canon ship, because there's a lot of them here. Not only that, there was some new ships from Star Trek Online. There was the Alita that made it here, which is an Akira class sort of upgrade from the Akira in Star Trek Online, but we're not going to get into that. And there was another ship there, but that's not really one of my favorite. And it was a Discovery era ship that they upgraded in Star Trek Online, and they put it in here. But again, what you had here, and there's a video that will be coming out after this, in probably a day after this release, of us going over the Federation fleet. And this is, again, to me, the pinnacle of what the Federation is in terms of its ships. So you have an Odyssey class, you have of course, the Titan, the Excelsior, the Ross class, Sovereigns. There was plenty of Sovereigns here. You still had your Defiance, you still had your Steam Runners, of course, and the Excel 2.0s, and there were ships missing. Inquiry-wise, I think they should have had more, just because, of course, what we've seen in Picard season. It's like they forgot they had a bunch of inquiries. But the Sagan class, of course, and, again, that video that will be coming after this, we'll go over that in more. But I found that there were ships missing here. Personally, like the Prometheus class. Why wouldn't there be a Prometheus class here? That's one of my favorite ships in Star Trek. The Saber class wasn't even there. Yes, you had the Defiance. There was even a Nova class in there, but you didn't have. I didn't say that Intrepid, but there was a Pathfinder, which is the upgraded version of the Intrepid class in Star Trek Online. So, again, could those ships still have existed? In my mind, yes. Maybe they're in the patrol, like I mentioned earlier. So, but again, I love this moment, seeing the full Federation. Of course, you had the Titan there. Of course, only one version of the Titan, but everything else had like a second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh version of it. But again, this showed to me that their current sort of tactical technology is still the phasers, photons, and quantums. And seeing this in the behind the action, behind the dialogue of how much a pounding even Earth space dock was taken was quite impressive to me, just because of how long it lasted. I know all of these things were happening at the same time, so I don't think it was necessarily an hour as things were moving all at the same time, but for it to last that long against all those ships with all the torpedoes it was taking was quite impressive too. So I kind of throw in the Starbase too when it comes to the fleet there. And again, all those scenes there of just major pew-pews was absolutely awesome. Of course, we had moments of the Titan. But when you look at this scene, when I saw this scene, I was in awe. It's literally like a Federation wall. We'll just ignore that, but it was a Federation wall, and it was absolutely insane, where we would get a sort of defense formation too as well, right? There's no fleet I think would get through that Federation wall. At least, again, we don't know the size of the other fleets, Romulan, KDF, at that point, the Klingon, but still an impressive line of ships. And you did see here a couple of ships, like there's an Akira there, see the passing there, but again, all the Titan had was phasers, photons, well, and of course the advantage of the cloak device that it had there. But again, quite an impressive feat. And, the Luna classes too as well. So you saw the Luna class. Again, there was Inquiry classes, but I feel like it should have had more put there due to what we saw in season 1 of Picard and that final shot. It's like I feel like they forget what they've done previously, and we'll kind of get into that a bit. But again, for what it is, for what it was, I was happy about it. So can't really get too angry about it. And again, Earth Space Dock did fall after it took quite a beating, so that was awesome. But then you have this scene again. We saw prominently the Odyssey class there. So again, I'm very happy that it got its moment there. And to me, regardless of how it is, the Odyssey class got really solidified as a canon ship here. as you can see, it was anchoring a lot of the formation there, back and forth. And just, again, seeing this, all the ships facing about to attack Earth was quite menacing. All they had to do, I'm surprised they didn't sort of, I know that, of course, Starbase was also fighting back, and we did see some ships get destroyed, and that's apparent, especially in one of the last scenes there. But again, quite an impressive thing. I loved seeing it. So there's that, the Federation/Borg fleet. Next up, I'm going to give it to the Titan. And of course, / the Enterprise, now G. I know that a lot of people didn't like this moment. Again, I'm still trying to process it, how I feel about it, because when you think of the Enterprise, especially its lineage from the NX to the Enterprise F, the ships got progressively bigger. The Titan is smaller, but they did explain in a line the reason why they're doing it was just to honor the crew that, and essentially the Enterprise D crew and all their actions that they had done on the Titan, hence why they did that, which is fine. I'm fine with. I really am. There is a sense of, but it made sense show-wise to me. It may not make sense to some of you captains, and that's okay. But it is what it is at this point, and I'll just go ahead and celebrate it, that they gave us an Enterprise G, and if it would have stayed the Titan, I would have been happy. And at this point, of course, we know that Seven now is the captain of it, so as a fan of this series, I want them to have that spin-off with them and the Enterprise G. Now, it is kind of weird saying it because through the whole season, it was the Titan, right? And now it's the Enterprise G. But this was a great shot. And you know what? One of the ships that we're missing there, and I'll mention now because it was pictured here at the very bottom there, was the Intrepid, the Deuterstick class. It just looked like it has that one ship there, but again, it's hard to nitpick, but as Star Trek fans, we nitpick anyways. So, but again, it was the way that they also presented it as the Enterprise G. This moment here, these screenshots that I took, I absolutely loved it. And what really made this moment for me was a cherry on top was Picard's sort of reaction to it too as well. But they rechristened it the Enterprise G. It is what it is. That is now our next Enterprise, and I hope that we do get a series from it. Again, I would have been fine if it was stayed the Titan, but the Titan throughout the whole series as a ship itself was great as a hero ship. So I hope that if they do this spin-off series, that they do the ship justice as they have been doing in this whole season 3, because they did it great. They did a great job in showcasing the ships as part of the episodes. And I've always said that the ship in itself is a character, and the Enterprise name alone bears some weight. So I hope they do this ship justice if they carry on the series. But again, hard to be too angry at the fact that the ship that I oogled over there throughout the whole season became the Enterprise, but I can understand the feelings of some captains out there. But again, it is what it is. Now, a couple of things that they did reuse, a couple shots here and there of it. I'm okay with it. I would have wished they would have used, new footage of the Enterprise, warping out or whatever. But as many Star Trek shows that they like to reuse assets there, clips here and there, and I'm okay with that. Even this scene itself. But again, having the Titan become the Enterprise G now was a moment that was impactful, and I think it was really great. So moving on here, we move on to Seven. Captain Seven here, she, throughout the whole series, she was just awesome, and she really had her moments to shine. And in this episode, we get a glimpse, if anything, we get a glimpse of what Seven is going to be on her own as a captain. And she had her moments of leading the crew, inspiring the crew. It worked for me. It really did. And Seven's sort of demeanor change from Voyager to now that her emotions are in full swing. Loved it. I absolutely loved how she was there when she was taking the crew, inspiring the crew there. And the whole series up to this point, she was featured here and there, and she stood up on her own. And I absolutely loved moments of Seven throughout the season, especially when they gave it to her to really take command. And now she really did. And the moments of inspiring the crew, the moments of letting us, the audience, know what dire situation they are, yeah, it worked for me. It really did. And I really hope that if this does become a spin-off series, Seven is at the helm, and I'll be right there rooting for her. I really will be, because she's had now the experience with Janeway and Captain Picard, or Admiral Picard, and it feels just right for me. And her leadership was really showing there in this last episode, and I quite enjoyed it. Now, of course, I threw Tuvok in there because this moment between the two, of course, was just great. But how Seven was in this moment was absolutely even better. Her showing the emotion and trying to hold it back there. Of course, we can't do a favorites moment without shouting out our captain, Liam Shaw. There's some theories out there that he's alive, but I really think he's gone, unfortunately. And again, although this is a Seven favorite moment, I'm throwing in there Liam Shaw because of the impact he had, not only on me, but on the series, but also on everyone. I heard everyone loved him, and rightfully so. And again, Seven in this moment was just absolutely amazing. She showed such emotion, and it was very fitting, and I absolutely loved it. And you know, this moment, of course, with not only Liam Shaw as a hologram giving her, you know, a recommendation to captain, but also Tuvok there, that was pretty awesome. And that smile to me was everything. Just the sort of recognition she got, and that, yeah, you know what, Starfleet is accepting you for who you are, and it really it works for me. And for us to have had a glimpse of Captain Seven, I hope again that we get something here as a spin-off series, and that we finally find out what her sort of engage moment is. That, so I hope that is going to be there in the future for us as Star Trek fans. So next up here, we're going to Worf. We can't Worf. I feel like he was just the comic relief in this whole thing, but he embraced it. I think the actor really, Michael Dorn, really embraced what they wrote him as here, and I'm okay with it. Kind of like this calmer Klingon than what we saw from TNG, from DS9, but he had so many moments here of just awesomeness. He said, "And I will make it a threesome." Oh my god. Riker's reaction to, do you even hear yourself? He didn't. And what he did, like, you know what I mean? It was good. Again, the moments of laughter, a lot of them were provided by Worf. But he also gave us gave me a tearful moment when he said to Captain Picard when they were parting ways, they're on the Borg cube, there's two things that Klingons don't know, is defeat and farewell. That hit the feels. I wish they gave Worf a little bit more of those types of moments, because he can deliver it really well in the way that a Klingon could only, in that very stern way. And emotional as Picard was, of course, he wasn't showing emotion, but there was emotion behind it, you know. And again, Worf throughout the whole thing here, and he even got a little fight sequence there. And even in this sequence, he got shot twice, or I think he got shot twice, and Riker finds out that he actually has a phaser in his sword there, and the reason why he didn't use it, well, because swords are fun. It's just, sure, all right, no, that really works. And you know, all throughout the series, he was just awesome. As soon as he arrived, he never had an episode for me that I did not laugh with his Worfisms there. And this moment, here I was getting all teary-eyed, knowing it was at the end there. And Worf sits down there. We see the view screen of Geordi looking at his two daughters, Seven and Raffi, and then all of a sudden we hear him snoring. I don't know how many times I've watched this scene, and I still crack up just thinking about it. My face is hurting. How the deliverance of this was pretty awesome. And again, I'm so thankful we got this moment with Worf there throughout the series of just comic relief. He did it correctly. He did it tastefully to send off his character as Worf, I feel. And even had his moment with Raffi there. As much as, and I keep saying this, I didn't really connect still with Raffi, and that's okay. I don't expect myself to connect with everyone. Obviously my connection is with the TNG crew, but they showed this side of Worf sort of being this mentor to Raffi, and I did like it. I did absolutely love it. Even him taking that extra step forward with his character to actually hug Raffi. And again, not my favorite character, but paired up with Worf, it worked in this sort of last iteration of Worf where he is sort of a mentor now. So again, gotta love Worf and what he had done there. So moving on here, we go into Data. We can't go off without saying Data. He's had this moment. It felt like he's had this moment waiting for him to just get out of him, and he really showed and shown here and shined in this moment where he took over the Enterprise and said, everyone trust me, this is my gut feeling. And I got that sense from him. And this does remind me of when Geordi in TNG was explaining the whole thing of what the gut is to Data as a sort of feeling. And I love how Geordi just said, you know what? Yeah, we'll give it to you, Data. We'll totally give it to you. And we even get this awesome moment where Troy is like, why am I sensing joy? And he's just it's like an old man just smiling. I can't help but not just, because that's kind of how I was smiling in this moment, seeing the Enterprise just flying the way Data was making it fly. It was awesome. And to have given this Data this last hurrah, even though he's died already twice or three times, however many it is, to bring him back for this moment, I was all over it. So I have to give it to Data. And then of course we get a little session with Data trying to get all his feelings, all his emotions out there with Troy, which I thought was hilarious at the last part, because even then we got a sense of these sessions with Deanna. They kept going over because Data just kept talking, and even though Deanna's like, yeah, well, we're done, Data still just keeps going, and to the point where Troy's just, you know what, you keep going, while she's trying to plan her vacation. But the last little moment here that we get from he's okay, he's okay, and I'm glad of this send off of the Data character, and I'm okay with it, even though I feel like, I don't want to say that they're trying to erase what had happened in the past, but they tried to explain it of how they brought him back or why he was brought back, and it was really done by Soong, but it's okay. I'm okay with that. So next up, I'm gonna give it to Bev. Beverly, and I've said this before, I may have had a crush on her when I was a little boy, but Beverly did have a lot of awesome moments here, and what I got from her here in this final episode was all over the place, in terms of her being worried, of course, about her son, worried about Picard even in this moment, and her delivery lines was the way she delivered it was just awesome. And when she was being tearful, I felt the emotion from her. And when she was actually at Tactical and did her thing at Tactical, and that was awesome. So it showed huge growth for me as a character for Beverly. And that statement that she said, a lot has happened in 20 years, because she was seriously on her own with Jack there, it showed. And I loved that progression in her character, and even the crew there was surprised by her. But the tearful moments that she had there, even this moment, her agreeing that the only thing they could do is destroy the Borg cube, even with Jack and Picard there on. Of course, she was more worried about Jack, of course, but it was great. Again, just the emotion, that subtle emotion, but never lost that sense of the duty that they had, which was to end the Borg, right? So, and then again, even in this hug there, as Picard and Jack came onto the bridge, this hug, I felt that when the camera panned towards her, she was more, again, worried about Jack. Then he, of course, acknowledged Picard, but I think, to me, my theory is, and I think Terry Matalas said in a bunch of interviews already after this, that it's left open to interpretation, because we know that Picard's love interest was Lyris, and that the explanation why she wasn't here was she just wasn't available. That's it. So it's left open interpretation. To me, Picard's gonna go still hook up with Lyris. Beverly is just who she's gonna be, and I don't think Picard and Beverly is gonna be together. And I think that ship has sailed. It was sort of left open, but to me, I didn't feel the chemistry between them as them going back together. So that's just my take on it. But her again then becoming the head of Starfleet medical there, and her again awesome, and she became an admiral. Loved the Beverly moments. So next up, I'm gonna give it to the crew. Anytime that I saw the crew together, this screenshot right there, them on the bridge of the Enterprise E, them together in their seats, I could not help but just be taken back to when I was watching TNG growing up. Seeing them together there was just absolutely amazing. And even we get the Riker maneuver there, the original Riker maneuver with his leg going up on top of the console there. But them together just this whole time, and that's why I was quite sort of concerned, not concerned, just them being together so late in the sort of season. I guess I wanted to make it earlier so that we can get to this point. But them together here, the whole, essentially the last episode, the last part of episode 9, and then of course the entire episode of 10, on the recreated Enterprise D bridge, I could not help but feel all the emotions of nostalgia whenever I saw this. So I had to give it to them here as a crew as a whole, because they all had their moments in the season. Of course, I've sort of said how I loved how Geordi's character has evolved. He's more of a father now with his 2 daughters. Of course, Data and his Data-isms now with a little bit of lore sprinkled in there and sung. Riker and Deanna had their moments. Riker was sometimes more of a comedic relief, but he was also that anchor to Picard, I felt. And of course, Worf and his Worf-isms, and Beverly, and how she was portrayed throughout the whole series as just like a mother, a very concerned mother, and just someone who's very resourceful and still really made an impact in this whole series. And of course, you had my captain, my personal favorite captain is Picard, and he'll always forever be my Picard, and this forever will be my crew that no other Enterprise crew will be able to replace, and that's okay. There'll be other Enterprise crews out there, hopefully, but for me, the send-off of the whole crew here together in this moment was absolutely done well, and it was done in such a way that even at the end there, it was really tied off perfectly as they walked off the bridge here, and even gave the Enterprise D herself that moment of just being in the spotlight just that one more time, just like the crew. So again, it took me this long to process, and I'm still processing, to be honest, Captains, that this is the last hurrah, but it was done correctly, at least for me. It could have maybe have done better, but that's okay. I'm happy with it. there. And of course we get this lighthearted moment at the end there, and it all literally comes back to them and that moment, the end there of TNG, the run there. But seeing them together here, the chemistry was there. I know Patrick Stewart didn't want to have anything that we saw here in season 3, but I'm glad they just kind of course corrected and gave us this, because it was done very well and the chemistry was still there regardless of him being very public about not wanting the crew back, or them being in uniforms or whatever. They course corrected and for the better, and I'm glad that they did. And again, just leaving off at this moment where they're together playing poker. Apparently this was real. This was real, this laughter of them, and you can see it. I feel that you can actually see it here, the chemistry with the whole crew being together there. And what a way to end off when it comes to wrapping TNG up, with how it actually wrapped up there when it was the end of Star Trek The Next Generation. So I gotta give it to them here. So next up here, I am going to give it, of course, to my captain. The whole season I've been giving these favorite moments to everyone else but him, but this episode is where he really truly shined for me, and he did absolutely an amazing job going back to the saddle as Captain Picard. But his moments of commanding the crew there, it was just awesome. And his lines that he delivered, lines that are just going to be iconic now to me. And especially when it came to the moments of him, telling Beverly, "You brought him this far, let me bring him home." It was so good. And then his moments of saying goodbye to the crew here, saying that it was an honor serving with you all. Not here. His delivery lines here was money, was pure gold. And even here, him saying goodbye to Riker and Worf, "I can't be your captain anymore, I need to be a father." I felt that. I really did. Being a father myself, I really felt that. And I'm glad that Picard really embraced this. And you can tell in his performance, because his heart was in it. At least to me it was. And just again, the moments between when he said, "Will, thank you, it means so much." Of course, to Worf, like I said earlier, him saying farewell. And then him now going to be a father. Yeah, it was there. I felt it, especially when he saw Jack. And when I say this moment, of course, for Picard being one of my favorites, I'm going to also throw in Jack there, because I've said throughout the whole sort of reviews that we've been doing here, I've been having a hard time connecting with Jack, and I was totally wrong about my prediction of Jack. I thought he really was going to go to the Queen and mess her up via Janeway style, but no, he embraced it. And in this episode, him embracing it, the way he did and why they sort of made him embrace it, I get it. And his longing to be accepted, to be connected to people there, boom, well, this is the ultimate connection. And I think they did it pretty good, and the actor himself portrayed it, him being a Borg and also a son. I think it also came out here perfectly in episode 10. So seeing him again in that Borg outfit, of course, like father, like son, and Picard's sort of just that probably messed him up pretty good in the head too. But the moment when Picard decided to actually go inside was pretty awesome. And him actually saying the whole line of "We are the Borg, resistance is futile," like that was pretty cool actually. And how connected he was, it really showed when Picard actually went. And I loved how they did this scene when Picard actually, go back a frame there, plugged himself in willingly, because he said that he was been trying to run away from it, but to save his son he had to go in. And of course we get this callback to Locutus there, and same almost attachment that Picard wore Jack had. But when they were doing this moment, this is where I connected more with Jack. And like I said, I was wrong in my prediction of him, but the way and why he accepted this was great. I had a problem of when he, as soon as he snapped out of it, said, this is the end of the Borg. It's like he flipped the switch, but sure, it worked. I think that just is speaking to the relationship that he had with Picard, because they even showcased that in this moment here. And I loved, again, how this was portrayed. I said it before in the review, this gave me like Matrix feels, but it was done well. And it gave Picard a moment with Jack with Picard, and it was done well. And I felt the fatherly feels when Picard said, "You've changed me forever." And then, Jack gets all teary-eyed, and that's the connection that he was longing for was his father. And of course we saw that there in one of the earlier scenes there when there was a flashback when he was asked at the bar there with all those cadets there. He was longing for that connection, and he got it here. And that smile from him, I really felt that smile from him, that just, you changed me forever. And then we get these flashbacks of them being together throughout the whole season. It was really done well. I don't know how it could have done any better, but then his snap out of it is him saving his father, of course, too, as well at this point, because he willingly went in. And Picard's pain here was awesome. I loved seeing how he portrayed himself in pain, physical pain, just connecting there. And it was just done well. I love this moment too, and just he looked like the Borg. He had that Borg attachment there. It was pretty awesome there. And again, this moment we get, of course, with the family reunion, of course, it was done well. Again, in my interpretation of this is Beverly and Picard are not getting together. Picard is just sort of helping his son out. If this is going to be there with his son, of course, he wants to be now in his life. And him and Lars are still going to be together. Again, it's left for open for interpretation, and that's how I'm taking it. This was a cool family scene. I gotta say, this was a cool family scene of them. And even when Picard's moment of just seeing the Enterprise G, right, the rechristened Titan there to the G, it was a good moment between them. I really did like it, and his emotion here, that's kind of how I felt throughout the whole that's kind of how I felt throughout the whole time since the last episode, Captain. I'm not gonna lie, just knowing that this is all at the end there. But again, it was done well, and now we're getting a glimpse of what it could be now, what a spin-off series could be with Jack. And it's going to be a lot of cheekiness from him, and I love the interaction already with Jack and Seven. But this part here was pretty cool. Again, get another, I still find this like a moment between Jack and Picard, of course, and Beverly there, of him, but now of course with Q. So is this going to be a thing where it's going to be, of course, a Jack-centric story, but in TNG it was with Picard as the captain, but now it's going to be with Jack, who is this, of course, special prodigy of whatever. Again, I'm okay with it. I'm happy that I was finally able to connect with this character via a father-son relationship type. So I'm going to be interested to see how, if they can go on with the spin-off series, how they're going to do this Q and Jack thing, especially with Seven being the captain. We'll see. But again, a moment that I thought was really good with Jack, and it was a good send-off, and it kind of wrapped up everything, because that's how Star Trek The Next Generation started, right? Was when Q found Picard and started his trial, but now, of course, now it's Jack's trial. So I know I mentioned throughout the whole time that it's been hard to connect to Jack, but though the connection was late, though the connection wasn't what I expected to make with him, and it was more of a fatherly connection, I'm okay with it. And if this leads off to a series, and if they do it well, I'm okay with it. So, and lastly, captains, we're gonna give it to my girl. We're gonna give it to my girl, the Enterprise D. Seeing her again in episode 9, I was emotional. and I still get emotional. I don't know how many times I just watch these scenes over and over again, but seeing how they just gave her moments here, just it's hard just not to again be taken back to when I was a kid, and the way that they did it, the lens flare of how they did it here too. I'm okay with the lens flare. Give me the lens flare. I'm totally okay with it. But just that elegance of a ship that the Galaxy class, that the Enterprise D is just was on full display from every angle that they used here. The aft, just so good. And then they give her. I love this how they use the Galaxy class is a pretty big ship. And again, what I said earlier, this is why I had a minor issue with the Titan becoming the next Enterprise, because we do get a scene here, which you'll see later, of them together. But the Galaxy class is a big ship, and seeing it right beside the Borg cube here was absolutely utterly ridiculous. I think this was too much on the Borg's end of their ship, but sure, it was their last of resources. The Queen put it all together, sure, whatever. But again, we get the moments of the Enterprise D just really flying, and her being put to the potential of what, like, someone made a comment, and I don't think it was necessarily in my videos, but I think of the articles I've been reading, because I've been trying to again make sense of all of this, is that she still looked like a flagship to me. Yes, 100%. And the way and then again, this Beverly moment of her taking over tactical and just firing phaser, the photons there, the pews here was real caps, and seeing the bubble shield again. I'm glad they didn't give her a form-fitting shields. I'm just really happy with that. And this moment of her going inside the Borg cube, just giving the Borg what for, which is phasers and photons. It brought a smile to my heart, and even inspired me to go back onto my Galaxy class in Star Trek Online, and that's another video that'll be coming from this. But seeing her in action again it just brought me back to my childhood, and I could not have been more happier to have had this sort of send-off to the Enterprise D, the Galaxy class that I grew up with, because again, this ship is what got me to loving Star Trek. And I've always said, when it comes to Star Trek, it's always ships first. And the Enterprise D was just... she's still my first love. I cannot not knock her off that list of her being my favorite ship there. And it'll be more apparent as well when I do another type video, but we'll talk about that when we get to that video. But again, this is the shot that I was talking about, where you see that the Enterprise D is with the Titan, well, Enterprise G, and you see the size difference. Now, it could be argued, of course, with more advanced technologies, smaller things get. Sure, I get it. But this also shot of the Galaxy was just absolutely amazing, as again, a send-off and as sort of a moment, well, mirroring that of the TMP moment when the Enterprise A and the Excel were flying off together. So I love this moment. But again, here you also see how, and I'll bring this back to how strong the starbase defenses were, because this is floating ships of all the destroyed ships that the starbase hit. So there's a lot, you don't actually get the sense of it, but there was a lot of death. There was a lot of death here on this day, but you know, I don't think it would have made any difference in them showing or sort of showcasing how many people died here. But I thought this scene just said it all, of how many ships were lost in this battle for Earth, which did give it a grand scale. But then we get this moment of her finally getting her resting place in the museum there, where all the legendary ships go. And this is the last shot that we get of the Enterprise D from the outside. And it was just it was just done well. It really was done well, in my opinion. And I think having this the last time seeing her was great. And I also still included the interior moment there of the bridge, because they also did this bridge, along with giving her old computer voice back. Major Bear, like, come on, that was like an icing on top that I didn't know I needed. And just them walking off the bridge and just them closing the lights off there, again, I say I was processing it still, and I cannot not be left happy still, regardless, for the most part, that we got this. I got this as a sort of closure to the TNG that I grew up with. And I go back to the shot because this shot is almost reminiscent of another stock footage that they used there. The camera going up or down from the front view for the Enterprise. That is where I fell in love with her. And they did that. They recreated that shot here. And I just could not help but just smile and replay this moment over and over. I don't know how many times I've watched those just clips of these scenes over and over again. And, they did it well. I feel the send-off, especially to my Enterprise D, they did it well. So, and that is my most favorite moment of this episode, was the Enterprise D getting her due props. So that's kind of where we're going to leave it off on that scene. So in closing, Caps, first and foremost, thank you for checking out these videos. I know sometimes it's just an old man just ranting off and saying all these nostalgia stuff is great. I love it. But in all honesty, I do. And I'm not the only one. The captains that I hang out onto the bridge with when we're streaming, they all felt the same for the majority. And I cannot not give this whole season, this whole Star Trek Picard, a 10 out of 10 for me. Things could have probably done better, but how much better, I don't know. At the end of the day, it's a show, but to me, this show meant so much as a close off, and for them to give it that proper respect, I could have just been more happier with how they did it. And I really thank you, Captains, for checking out not only our reviews, but these sort of favorite moments. I know, and like I said, I apologize, it took a while to get out there, but it took me up to this moment of making this video to really process it, and I'm still processing it, of how they close this off. And at the end of it, all I can say is it's a 10 out of 10. I'm happy with it. I feel content, and I'm looking forward. Now, if they do that series again, that spin-off series, Star Trek Legacy, whatever you're gonna call it, I hope they remember what they did here in Star Trek Picard, what they are doing with Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Lower Decks, and that they apply it there. It can be done. Was this a lot of nostalgia? Of course. But Strange New Worlds, I have no attachments to any of the characters except Pike from Discovery, but even then it was just those moments that he was shown there in sort of spurts. But I connected with him during the whole season 1 of Strange New Worlds. So I think the formula is there for them to continue on making Star Trek series, and especially them using this to jump off and make possibly a Star Trek Legacy or whatever they're going to entitle it. So if this was indeed the last push, or it is the last push for the TNG, I'm glad they did it this way. If they touch it again, sure, I'm fine with it. But this in its entirety was just absolutely amazing for me, and was a great send-off to my TNG crew, to my Enterprise D. So, Captains, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So, again, my conclusions, this whole thing was a 10 out of 10. Nostalgia brought me probably to that conclusion, but I'm okay with it. It was an experience from episode 1 to episode 10, and I'm okay with it. I really am okay with it, and I wanted this to be as raw as I can when I make these videos, because I do this without no scripts. I just go off of how I feel, and I think it even showed there how I was doing the intro, because I was just in almost non-belief that I'm doing this, because this is the last review that I'll be doing sort of for this, and I made it as long as my review for the episode. But Again, captains, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button, comment below. Let us know what your favorite moment is. And again, I'll take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you so much for checking out these videos. To those captains who have subscribed here to the YouTube bridge for the videos that we've made for Star Trek and Star Trek Picard, thank you. I will plan on continue doing more. There will be some more videos that are non-Star Trek Online related, but are Star Trek related. But for the most part, this is always just a platform for me to just share my love and my passion, like I say always in our intro, with like-minded captains. So there you go, captains. That is Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 10, my favorite moments. I can't believe this is going to be over, but I can say with 100% certainty that I am satisfied as a TNG fan. I am happy that I got to experience this, not only with, of course, with just watching, but with you captains here being on the bridge. So with that, we will leave it on this note.
Live long and prosper.